Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. I'm glad that you're here. Whether you're watching us tonight live on podcast or watching the podcast later on, or if you're listening to the podcast, we're really glad you chose to join us and be in the audience. We appreciate all of your comments. We appreciate all of your questions. Don't forget to like and share. George Dismukes is in the house. He says, all right, onward without judgment or forethought.
Or thinking.
or any. Sometimes no thinking at all. Paul Hollis says, hello, Joan and Rob. Hello, Paul.
Hello,
we
Paul.
loved your show with Indie Ink Spot. You know, what is that?
Voice of Indie.
Voice of Indie. I can never remember that. CW. Hi,
fresh
CW. Glad to see you. Happy Wednesday, Rob and Joan. Happy Wednesday to you, too.
Good to see you, CW.
Caleb Pirtle.
Caleb.
Rob, I missed the cowboy hat.
Well,
he had it
this
on
is an
last
East
week.
Coast show. We're not in Texas anymore.
That's right. Our guest is from South Florida.
So-
But speaking of Caleb is going to be on Voice of Indie.
That's right. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking that is going to be tonight.
Yes, it is going to be tonight,
Yeah,
right after
fun.
us. So you can hop on over there, stay for our whole show, but then
I thought I had
Hop
it
on
here,
over
but
there.
I guess I don't.
No.
Okay. I thought I downloaded it. Okay. All right. So much for that. Anyway, yeah, go over and see Voice of Indie podcast. It's on blogtalkradio.com. Our hosts over there are Beam Weeks and Gary G's. Great people, fun show. And that's right immediately following the show. You can even, there's a phone number you can call and ask questions of Caleb. Put him on the spot, ask him some good questions.
Well, don't put him on the
Well,
spot.
don't put him on the spot, but you can
We put
pick
Paul
his brain a
Hollis
little
on
bit.
the spot,
Yeah,
but,
we did. Yeah, we did.
but
I'll
we'll
say.
be nice to Caleb.
There you go. Then we also want to.
George says thinking is only marginally necessary.
For me, it is, yes.
That's true.
Okay. This Saturday, remind everybody, episode rewind's coming up. That's Saturday, July 30th. Author KJ Waters is time traveling. She was on 6 months ago, and she's going to be on again. So she writes about time travel. Anyway, 5:30 p.m., right where you're watching right now. That's Eastern time in the U.S. on Saturday.
Oh, Beam. Yeah.
Hey, Beam.
Yes. Call Voice of Indie.
Call Voice.
What he means is you can either call and be on the show live and ask questions, or you can put out a tweet and you have to put hashtag in Voice of Indie.
Right.
I think that's the only thing you have to put, but Beam, you can correct me. And then, then Beam will read your question or your comment on the air.
Just go to blogtalkradio.com and Voice of Indie podcast, and you should be able to find it in there.
It's easy to call in. And Tori Gates is in the
hi,
house.
Tori.
Hi, Tori. So happy to have you
Welcome
here.
aboard.
Yeah. Chris Garcia.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris. Is it your first time tuning in? It's good to hear from you.
Oh, there's Beam.
And Beam says
Hashtag Fresh Ink Group.
Fresh Ink Group. Oh, that's what
On
we
your
do
tweet,
on
yeah.
tweet.
Put that on your tweet if you have
Thank
a question that you want to have answered. Okay.
Okay. Chris Garcia says, hi, Meet the Author, if you want me to come on. Well, I'll tell you what, shoot us an email.
Send an email.
We have a waiting list, just so you know.
Send an email to carternovels@aol.com with your request and a link to your work. Be happy to take a look at it, and maybe we'll be chatting with you one day.
And it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. In the meantime, why don't we bring in our
guest
guest
for tonight
before he packs up and goes home. So anyway, we're going to welcome Frank into the show here. Hi, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Hello, Rob and Joan, and hi, everybody who's listening.
Yeah.
Glad
this
to have
is
you.
Frank Ruffolo. No, Ruffolo.
Ruffolo.
No, it's not Ruffalo. It's Ruffolo.
You got it.
There you go.
I got it.
That's what she said. Frank knows how to say it, right, Frank?
I sure do.
Yeah.
Silly
Oh,
guy
goodness.
you are. Well, listen, Frank, I was just wondering, how long have you been writing, and what made you decide to start writing?
I started late in life. I started writing around 2007, 2008.
Ah,
I woke up one morning and told my wife of now 47 years I had a great idea for a movie. And I started writing, which ended up being my second book. And now I've got 10. So the voices haven't stopped since. So it's like the voices in my head.
there's little voices in our head.
I had 10 books published. I've got 5 that are written that have not been published yet, that have to be edited, and I'm writing another one. So
Okay, what are your genres that you concentrate on?
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
Caleb Pirtle says, now that's a hat.
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
I don't know what this is, but I don't know.
I write in 3 major genres: action, murder mystery, and faith-based science fiction. I do have a manuscript written that hasn't been published yet, which is historical fiction. But those are the 3 that I'm writing right now.
Yeah, so is this your first book, Gabriel's
That's
Chalice?
my first book.
Okay. You
Gabriel's
want to
Chalice.
tell us a little bit about it without giving
Okay,
away any spoilers?
That is the weeks leading up to Judgment Day.
Oh, wow.
Based on the New Testament, Luke 21:11. I don't want to get too religious here, but Luke 21:11 is where Jesus told his disciples what's going to happen when he returns. And of course, they didn't know it at the time what he was talking about. So that basically what that says is there will be plagues and earthquakes in various places, terrors of the sky, and great signs. So that's basically what Gabriel's Chalice is about. How, in my interpretation, God tells us how his son is returning, and I chose the Archangel Gabriel as the voice because he was the one that was the voice before. So, and there's earthquakes and plagues and all that stuff. I don't go into Judgment Day because no one really knows when Judgment Day is. So I leave that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It ends right before that.
Yeah. But you do end times.
I do end times. Yeah.
Okay, and this is the first in a series, right?
That's the first in the series. The second in that series is
This one.
Tres Archangelis, which is Latin for 3 archangels.
3 archangels.
And
Yeah.
that takes place 25 years after Judgment Day.
Okay.
After everybody has been judged, after the people who chose wisely is still here, there's 1,000 years of peace.
Right.
Man still has lack of faith even though Judgment Day happened and we were in peace, but man still with his sins of avarice and greed and power cause chaos, and they create an instance which causes an asteroid, a life-death ending asteroid hurtling toward Earth. And God chooses the same protagonist that was in my first book who met with Archangel Gabriel, picked that family and said, okay, basically said, my guardians protect Earth and I can stop the asteroid from hitting Earth, but you, mankind, caused this problem. Mankind has to fix it. And if you want to use the power of the archangels, they left 3 keys on Earth. You must find the keys to unlock the power before the asteroid hits. So basically, that's Tres Archangelis, the same family. And of course, the devil or the malignant has to get involved trying to stop the family. So there's a fight on Earth between the good and the bad.
Okay, cool.
And then this is the next one in that series, right?
This is the next one called Xantha Terra. Xantha Terra is a location on Mars. There is a plane on Mars called Xantha Terra.
Huh.
And during the Tres Archangelis book, mankind tries to stop the asteroid from coming. They use some old nuclear rockets that were in orbit at a satellite that has gone dark. So they try in the last ditch effort to reactivate that satellite and point the nuclear missiles toward the asteroid. It's old technology, so they can't have a GPS. So they can only point a point. They can pick a point in space where they think the asteroid's going to be and shoot the missiles toward the asteroid. One misfires, one misses, one hits the asteroid but doesn't stop it. So the missile that misses lands on Mars and explodes, a nuclear blast on Mars, and it terraforms Mars. So Xantha Terra is 1,300 years later.
Wow.
Mars has been terraformed. There is a population on Mars. The main city is Xantha City, which is basically the outer space's version of Las Vegas. Here goes man is with his sins or everything and polluting another planet. And what has happened is they discover through archaeological digs on Mars, they discovered that there was an ancient Martian civilization that was wiped out because of war and a nuclear disaster then. And when that bomb hit, it set into motion this and a monster. What happened is a monster was developed from the terraformer of Mars that killed the population of Mars, the original population. And when we set the bomb off on Mars, it set into motion instances where that monster reappears, and then the monster ends up on Earth. So
Yeah, quite the imagination.
My goodness.
and what happens is the future generations of my protagonist in the first two books, because during the Judgment Day, they find the Ark of the Covenant. And the current generation now becomes the commander of the Ark. Like the old times, they used to be commander of the Ark. He's the commander of the Ark. And in that, there's going to be a fight between good and evil, and the Ark of the Covenant is going to get involved. So that's Xantha Terra.
Joe Conjo just dropped in. He said, "Hi, everyone. I'm late, but here for my favorite night of the week." Thanks, Joe. We're glad you could drop in.
Oh.
Yeah, hi, Joe.
And I'm currently writing the next book in that series. I left Xantha Terra with a cliffhanger, and a bunch of my readers have contacted me and said, "Hey, when are you going to let us know what's going to happen? We need another book."
Hey,
so,
don't leave us hanging, man.
I'm currently writing that. I'm currently going to clarify the cliffhanger in the next book. So
Okay, so that'll be the fourth one in that series.
Probably the fourth and last one in that series.
Okay, and then your next book is Crescent Star, right?
Crescent Star is the ebook version of.
Okay.
If you look on top, it says Trihedral of Chaos. Trihedral of Chaos is the printed book. That's what was released next. But instead of releasing one ebook for Trihedral of Chaos, since there's 3 stories in that, I released three ebooks. And each story has a different. It's the same characters, but a different story. So
okay, so then would this be the second one?
The second one would be Falcon's Canticle, which it's part of that series, and the third one is called Yellow Cake, which is basically.
I got this one.
This is an action book. This is basically baby boomers of our age who were veterans of war, veterans of the police force, are tapped by the federal government to start a new one of the leaders tapped by the federal government to manage a new agency that allows resources from the army and military to be utilized by local authorities in case of man-made or natural disasters. And the 3 books cover 3 separate terror attacks that they get involved in stopping.
Uh-huh.
Those are great covers. I like those covers.
Yeah. I do too.
I
For those
design
of you,
so
you designed them?
I designed all my covers. Yeah. So
Very nice.
That's nice.
So then the next book and the next printed book in that series is the one with the Italian. That one. Distruzione della Roccia, which means destruction of the rock, and the Pope excommunicates the mafia, Catholic members of the mafia, and the Capo di Capo gets pissed off and says, "Well, that is we're not going to take that." So he contracts with the Caliphate in Northern Africa to assassinate the Pope, and our guys are pulled out of retirement to try to stop the assassination.
Well,
Basically, that book just basically takes place in Italy. That's why it's in Italian. That's why destruction of the rock. Destruction. That means destruction of the rock, which means destruction of the Pope. And,
So it's just
now our Peter,
the.
and upon this rock. I
To
will
be
build my
clear,
church.
just the title is in Italian.
just the title's Italian.
There you go.
My goodness. Okay, so then we have the next series, right? This one,
Right.
Shadow.
Jack
Shadow
Stenhouse.
of
That's my detective series. There's 4 of those books, and there will be 4 more. I haven't published yet. So the first one he starts. Let me tell you about Jack. Jack's a player. He's single. He likes to hang around. He likes to date exotic women, exotic dancers. He's a cross between the old Mike Hammer detective, Dirty Harry, with a sense of humor like Deadpool. So that's Jack. He likes what Jack likes. His girlfriend, who's depicted on the cover of that book, ends up being his wife. She was an exotic dancer. Her stage name was Dee Dee because her name signifies her attributes.
Yeah, we get it.
You get it. Jack likes his women like he likes his coffee. The bigger the cup, the better. So that's Jack. So he starts as a detective in Fort Lauderdale. The first story is there's a beautiful woman being killed by the bite of a black mamba. Of course, there are no black mambas in Florida, so Jack's got to figure out how the heck these women are being killed and who's killing them. He's tired of the heat in Florida, even though he's a Florida boy. So him and his wife pack up. They get a job at the first precinct in New York, and he becomes the rookie detective in the first precinct. That's the second story, which is called the Saturnalian Effect. And basically, when he was put there, the first couple of weeks he put there, instead of putting him out in the street, the inspector of the first precinct wants him to look at a cold case that nobody can solve and see if he can solve it. And basically, that cold case was a serial killer that only kills during the Feast of Saturnalia. Saturnalia was the original holiday that the Romans used in December, which was replaced by Christmas. So it was the Feast of Saturn, the Feast of Winter. And this killer only killed during the Feast of Saturnalia, which takes place in the middle of December. And it's now winter again. And he discovered that it was the same guy that's been doing the same killing all these years, and now the killer started again. So Jack.
Are these stories in book 1?
That story. The 2 stories are in book 1.
Okay, 2 stories in book 1. That's
Shadow of Death is about the snakes, and the black mamba in Africa. The name for the black mamba is called Shadow of Death. And Saturnalian Effect is the second story, which is in New York. So that's book 1.
Then the second
two
book is Blue
is Blue Falcon. That's what's happening there is a very scandalous president running a corrupt administration is being impeached. Now, I wrote that book in 2015. So this was before any of the impeachments. And the witnesses that the special prosecutor are being called to testify against the president are being assassinated by the president's lover.
Interesting.
It's a dark secret. So one of the murders of one of the witnesses happened in the 1st precinct. Jack and his team are dispatched to the crime scene, and the FBI takes it over. And it's an old agent friend of Jack, and she convinces him to join her task force to try to find the serial killer. And as the bodies and blood make a trail to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, they have to now figure out how they're going to avoid a constitutional crisis.
Wow.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
I think
that book is being pitched right now for a movie in Hollywood. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position to say who.
Okay.
That is awesome. We'll be watching for that. Hold that thought, and we need to get a word from our sponsors now. So hang on just a minute. Don't go away, anybody. When we come back, we'll finish talking about all these fascinating books and have a book giveaway. So hang on.
They thought the siren was dead. In the novel Siren Song by author George Dismukes, James Harmon shot her twice. Several people saw her dead body sinking slowly into the abyss. But now, in Siren Song 2, evidence suggests that she may still be alive.
She killed that boatload of people. It was her! And she's just getting started!
Angie, that's impossible.
The cold chill up my spine tells me it's not impossible. We've got to start all over again. And this time, do it right.
Siren Song 2. The story continues. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Get your copy today.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen Gees welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
And we're back.
Hello again.
Hello again. Where were we? We were somewhere.
Let's see. We
Blue
had
Falcon,
just
right?
Blue
started
Falcon.
Blue Falcon, and then we have 148.
Yeah, 10048. That's the original zip code for the trade tower.
Okay.
What happens there is 15 years later, after the tower came down, at the North Pool of the Tower Memorial in New York City, they find the manager of a gold dealer that was supposedly died when the towers collapsed and $10 million worth of gold went missing. And they find him dead, poisoned to death at that tower, at that pool, with a gold coin in his hand. And Jack and his team have to now figure out who now killed this ghost in 9/11. Where has he been for 15 years? How did he get out of the collapse? And where's the gold?
That sounds really interesting.
It does sound interesting, doesn't it?
But no gold like that really disappeared, did it?
Yes.
It
Oh,
did?
it did.
Yeah.
Oh
Just
my
$10
gosh.
million of gold went missing during the collapse.
Was it in the tower, one of the twin
Yep.
towers?
Yep.
So it either went missing or it
Well, they never.
evaporated.
Let's put it this way: they never officially found it.
Wow. I'd never heard that before.
No.
That's interesting. I mean, a lot of things just evaporated.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
From the
But
heat.
yes,
From the
there
heat.
was a gold dealer in the trade tower, and yes, $10 million of gold went missing.
Wow. That's a lot of gold.
We don't have it.
No.
I don't.
No, we
No.
don't have it. All right. So then the next book is Lady of the Harbor.
Lady of
It's
the Harbor.
another Stenhouse.
Right.
Of course, that's the Statue of Liberty.
Statue of Liberty. During his morning routine, the park ranger, when he inspects the Statue of Liberty every morning, he climbs up the arm, even though it's closed to the public, and goes out onto the observation tower underneath the torch just to make sure everything's okay. And one morning he finds the frozen body of a beautiful woman on the torch.
Oh,
Observation deck. Now, Jack and his team have to figure out, since that's closed to the public, like, how did she get up there and who killed her?
yeah. I'm sure there's always a way.
There's always a way.
Yeah.
Evil finds a way.
Yeah, for sure.
I've always wanted to do a murder mystery that takes place in Disney World.
Yeah.
Maybe in the
Pirates.
Pirates would be a good place, but also where they play basketball.
Oh yeah, up
and
in the Matterhorn in Los Angeles or at Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
The one
That'd
in
be good.
Anaheim. Yeah.
So I've got four more. I've got four more Stenhouse books written. They haven't been released yet, and that one,
Stuck in Traffic.
Stuck in Traffic, is a standalone. This one is a little different. The friend of mine and professional person that I knew very well, Rose Warner, was writing a screenplay. She wanted to write a screenplay to expose the evils of human trafficking. And she called me, she contacted me. She had the screenplay half written, and she contacted me and says, I'm stuck. I don't like the way it began. I don't like where it is in the middle. Can you help me fix this screenplay? So I took it and fixed it. Liked the story so much, and I not only did I finish the screenplay, but then wrote the book based on the screenplay. So basically, she did some interviews and spoke with people that were actually involved as victims in human trafficking, and what's listed in the book are actual things that happen to people.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
And it ends up, there's some prominent people in the community that are involved that you would not think were involved, and
just like real life.
The moral of the story is, just because you have a judge and jury doesn't mean you're going to get justice.
Well, this next comment has nothing to do with that story. This is going back to the Statue of Liberty, where he finds where the ranger finds the murdered woman. And George Dismuke says that's a terrible waste of a beautiful woman.
Yep, terrible waste of a beautiful woman. Anything for a story.
And Joe Conchel says you could use that underground area where Disney employees get around. Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of tunnels under. That's in Disney World.
There's a whole city under there.
Yeah, our friend used to be a professor at Disney U that used to be under there. They don't do that anymore. Joe Conchel says again, hi Frank, do you plot everything out ahead of time, or are you a pantser?
I don't plot. I have a storyline that I put in my head that I know what's going on. And when I start writing, the characters take over. I don't know where it's going to end up. I know where I want it to end up. I don't know how I'm going to get there. but I don't have an outline. I don't have a chapter by chapter outline what's going to happen. I know I know the basic storyline, what I want to do, and then when I insert the characters, they take over.
Yeah, believe me, where you're talking to a bunch of people who do that. Quite a few of the people in the audience I know, their books are all character led. The characters talk to us.
And they don't even pay rent.
They don't even pay rent. No, yeah, and they stay in your head, don't pay rent.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous.
This is from Alicia DeBrito Carreno. Says, "Thank you, Sir Frank. People don't even know that he has a comedic side too."
Alicia, how are you? She's one of my friends and professional people. She's a dear. She's the one we're doing the sitcom with.
Oh, okay.
Well, welcome to the show, Alicia. The sitcom sounds pretty good. He told us about it ahead of time, before in the pre-show.
Why don't we tell everyone where
we
can find where they can find Frank?
Frank, I will do that. Okay.
When he's not on our show.
You know what? We never put this up.
Oh, there we go.
There we are.
Sorry.
Now we know who you are. Well, except your name's already up there, but okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. This is his website. It's frankaruffolo.com, and that's FrankaRuffolo. All right, that's his website. You can look there and see about all of his books and what's going on. His Facebook is Frank A. Ruffolo, author, same spelling. Twitter, Ruffolo, author, Ruffolo, and I think you know how to spell author, right? LinkedIn, Ruffolo, author. You've made it so easy for people to find you, Frank. That's
now they have no excuse.
Yeah.
They've got to go.
Instagram, Ruffolo, author. And here's his email. frankaruffolo@gmail.com. Mush, you want to talk about the book giveaway?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Okay, everybody.
Wait a minute. Before we do the book giveaway, just one quick thing. We have a comment here. Let's see. George Dismukes. Every writer that appears on this podcast says the same thing. It's true, George, that the characters take over the story. I'm encouraged to learn that it isn't just me. And that is so true, George. And if anyone had told me that before we had started writing, I would have said, that's a little crazy.
That is crazy.
But it's the truth. They do take over. They're very determined.
And what really gets me my goat is when you see these advertisements that, buy this software and it'll create a story for you. If you need software to create a story, you need another profession.
That's right.
That's true. That's true. You just need some characters that are headstrong.
Or you could write a book on how to use the software.
Alicia says it's truth. And it is the truth. It's so funny. And Caleb's in the audience tonight, and he said one time, and it really struck home to me. He said, if you ever are stuck and you can't go forward, it's because you're asking your characters to do something that they don't want to do. And that's the truth.
Hi, Marjorie. Welcome.
Marjorie Daring said, shoot, mishap. Thank goodness for the rewinds. Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've written paragraphs in a manuscript, and then the voice in the back of my head said, no, that's not the way we want to go do this. It's like one of my characters say, well, I'm not going to do that. And I have to go back and take all that paragraph out and start again. It's amazing.
Yeah. And like Caleb said, writer's block really means you're trying to make your characters do something that they just wouldn't do.
So let's get the book giveaway going.
Okay. I'll start.
Everybody get your fingers ready to type. The first 5 people to email Frank will win an ebook, and he will tell you what you've won after you do that. And we're going to put his email up there in big letters so you can see it easier. So everybody type away, and hope you win one of his great books.
And if you're listening to the podcast tomorrow, go ahead, give it a shot.
Yeah, give it a shot anyway. I'm sure you'd like to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you have a newsletter or anything that you send out?
No, I don't have a newsletter. But if you follow me on my Amazon page, my Amazon author page, they will automatically tell you any new things that are coming out. So I have an Amazon author page too. So
Okay, and your
Perfect.
website has all your books on it, and all
the
that.
website has my books. The website the website also has the short movie that I had screen credit for that they can use. I was the head writer for. So
Oh, good. And after tonight, it'll probably have this interview on there too, that they can rewatch and
right.
listen to.
Why don't we go ahead and do our second break?
Okay.
And then I've got a question for you, and we'll talk about what you got coming up.
okay, see you soon.
Be right back.
Another word from our sponsors.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
At Indie Booksource, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today.
Hey, and we're back again. How about that?
Hello again.
Hello, Frank. Question for you. Okay, we talked a little bit about this before the show, and you mentioned it then when you were talking about that last your standalone book. You said you took the screenplay and you wrote the book then, right? And then we did talk about writing the book and adapting it to a screenplay, which you're also working on doing. Which what are the pros and cons? What is harder for you? Was it easy to do the book from the screenplay?
It's easy to do a book from a screenplay because your basic storyline is there. So all you're doing is expanding the story, expanding the expanding the characters, and describing more of the characters, adding more to the story that's in the screenplay. What's really hard is taking a 300 or 400 page book and shrinking that down to an hour and a half on screen. And especially if you wrote the book, that's awful. That is an awful task because there's so much stuff you want. There's so much stuff you want to put in the movie. You'll end up with a 5-hour movie. So it's. Do
you find you don't have enough dialogue?
And sometimes the book doesn't have enough dialogue too. So then you got to add dialogue, and you got to add scenes, and that's why I think a lot of movies that end up being made from books or don't really represent the book. It's the book influence is there, but it doesn't really actually represent the book. Luckily for me, my books contain a lot of dialogue. So it's easy to adapt my books to a screenplay or a series. A lot of people want to do series for my books because it's very easy to adapt a series. A lot of people think that my books read like a screenplay. So it's pros and cons, I guess. I don't know. I would rather write a book from a screenplay than write a screenplay from a book.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that would be hard. I mean, most books that I've read, I've enjoyed more than the movie. Though I enjoy movies. I like movies a lot, but I love books because number one, it's in my imagination, it's my head, and as I'm reading, they look and act and sound the way that I want them to in my head, and then it's hard for that to be matched on the screen.
The reader ends up being the director. And what the reader reads, he's directing in his mind what he thinks it should look like. Whereas if you read the book and then you watch it on screen, you're taking somebody else's interpretation of the book, and it may not be the same thing that you interpreted. So
I think that's why George is being such a big part of the movie that he's making, because he wrote the book. And so now he has a lot of input into how it looks and how it's going to be on the screen. And
well, that's what we're hoping. That's what my co-writer and I are hoping that we're going to be able to do with Blue Falcon, is to keep the integrity. And
right.
We drive the story. So
yeah.
But you never know. When
Right.
when the contract's written and the name goes on the line, you never know what happens. So
yeah,
we keep
So
our fingers crossed.
you're very busy. You've got some more books on the drawing board. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, I got my wife, Christine, is my editor. So I have 5 that I've written. She's currently editing the next Jack Stenhouse book. And I'm writing another sci-fi book. And I'm busy writing screenplays. So yeah, I'm busy. The next Stenhouse book is going to be a continuation of the story from Lady of the Harbor. I believe we haven't really picked a title yet, but we're leaning toward the name of that book is calling Redemption. The main antagonist in Lady of the Harbor gets he gets involved with the mafia who don't like him, and they're going to eliminate him. They're going to bury him somewhere, and he escapes. So everybody thinks he's dead, but he escapes and he resurrects in the next book, and now he's going to take redemption against everybody who did him wrong. So he's going to take redemption against the mafia, the First Precinct, Jack and his team, and the government. So it's that has to be resolved. There's going to be a lot of dead bodies in the next book. There's going to be a lot of characters I'm going to be killing off in the next book. So.
And then is there going to be another one after that?
Yeah. So basically what I'm going to do is retire Jack Stenhouse from the PD because of what happens in the next book. And I'm turning him into a PI. So the next 3 books are going to be written more in a noir style.
Okay.
It's an old time PI, like the old time Mike Hammer, Mickey Spillane type of genre. And those 3 are going to be, it's going to be Jack Stenhouse PI books instead of Jack Stenhouse Mysteries. So it's same thing, just in fact, he has a little bit more freedom because now he doesn't have the constriction of being things that he has to do legally, so he's outside the law.
So Marjorie Daring says, how do you juggle so many projects at once? How do you divide your time among them? Good question.
I don't know, patience. I write every day on my book, and then I dedicate certain days to do certain things. I've got to plan it out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'm busy, sometimes I'm not. I'm retired from what I normally do, so I'm more busy now than I was when I was working 9 to 5.
Oh yeah.
So it's a good question though. It's you gotta pace yourself. You can't procrastinate. You can't say, well, I'm going to write today and then say, no, I better go on Facebook. No, you can't do that. You've got to get it done or it's not going to get done. And, as us 3 here are on our downslope in life, instead of upslope. We don't have as much time as we used to do, so we got to get it done
Right.
Sooner rather than later.
sooner rather than later.
And that's the truth.
No time for backsliding.
Yeah, I don't know how we had time to work, actually.
Right. I have no idea how we would ever do a full-time job anymore.
We're so busy all the time. Ever since we retired, it's like, how the heck did we ever have time to work? Because we never stop.
It's good.
And
Keeps you going.
And every single person we know that's retired has said the same thing. I don't know when I was able to work. And I think a lot of people when they retire think, well, what am I going to do? Whoa, just wait and see. It's never ending. Well, plus we have 6 children and 14 grandchildren, and they keep us busy always.
Yikes.
For sure.
Yeah, I know.
So Frank, which one of, we all kind of have a favorite of our own. Which book would you say is your favorite of the ones that you've written?
My favorite books are sci-fi.
Okay, your
Because
sci-fi series.
I am not constricted with the reality of what you have to write in a normal book. I mean, sci-fi books, I can say anything. I mean, just whatever comes in my head, I can divide anything and say, well, it's sci-fi. Let me give you an interesting background. I was 40 years in purchasing management. That's what I did as a living. Back, I'm going to try to do this and not be too religious. Back in the late 1900s, 1990s, that sounds like old, don't it?
It does. Back in the 1900s, yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
Back in the
20th century, there was a visionary in Hollywood, Florida, that was receiving messages from the Virgin Mary, like an apparition site. There's been many apparition sites in the world, but there was one in Hollywood, Florida. So my wife and I ended up being volunteers there. We would help with the crowd control and a lot of that stuff. And we were volunteers there for, over 10 years. It lasted over 10 years. She finally passed away, so it's not there anymore. The house is there. It doesn't matter anymore. During that time, I was told by the visionary that my muse was Archangel Uriel. Uriel is the Archangel of Wisdom. It's normally depicted when you see a picture or a statue of Archangel Uriel, he's carrying a book. And he's the Archangel for writers, authors, and journalists. So she told me at that time, that's Archangel Uriel is on my shoulder. And I started there as a volunteer before I started writing. So when I first started writing, it was an action book, which was the Trihedral of Chaos series. I had a daily routine. After I said my morning prayers, we have a Bible on display in our house. And I would go to the Bible and randomly flip it open to the New Testament, and whatever I read was my inspiration for the day. One morning I read Luke 21:11. I said, okay, thank you. Closed the book, went to work. 3 mornings in a row, I opened up the same passage. Luke 21:11. So that's why I stopped writing the first book and I wrote Gabriel's Chalice.
What does Luke 21:11 say?
That says that's what's going to happen during the end times. There will be plagues and earthquakes in various places. There will be terrors in the sky and great signs. Sounds like what's happening today.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's my background. So I've got, I believe, Archangel Uriel is my muse. And that's probably why I like sci-fi, my faith-based sci-fi, because that's.
Luke 21:11 says, there will be great earthquakes, famines, and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven.
Yep. So basically, Gabriel's Chalice is full of that.
So Marjorie Daring said, it must be tricky trying not to spend an inordinate amount of time on a less favorite project. Yeah.
Well, I don't have that problem.
You don't.
That's good.
None of my projects are less favorable. My problem is, how do I spend all my time on all of my favorable projects? I would not do a project if I didn't want. If I thought the project was unfavorable, I wouldn't even bother. I've been asked to do ghostwriting, and I've been asked to do other things. And once I've looked at the project, I've said no. If I didn't, if it doesn't, I don't think I fit, or I didn't think it was something I wanted to be involved with, I didn't even bother.
So Marjorie says discipline, right? It's just discipline to plow through it and get it all done.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no magic formula. You just got to do it.
And I have more than once written more than one book at the same time.
Oh,
I myself can figure out how I did that.
I couldn't do that.
I've written more, and it was two separate genres I was writing. So
that is juggling.
That's juggling.
Yeah, Marjorie was right there. How do you juggle?
Right.
But, that's how you do
it. Actually, if you look at action genre, sci-fi genre, and murder mystery genre, they're basically all the same. You have an antagonist, a protagonist. Somebody's looking for something. Somebody's trying to solve something. Somebody's trying to get something. And if you look at all those genres, they're basically all the same. Murder mystery is that. Sci-fi is that. Action is that. It's just a different approach on each one. So it's yes, the different genres, the basis, all the same. The one book I wrote that isn't the same is a historical fiction, which were based on two actual people in the Vietnam War. So,
and
I like historical fiction.
That's one you haven't published yet.
I haven't produced it. It's written, but I haven't released it yet.
Were they two people that you knew?
Excuse me?
Were they two people? You said it was based on two people during the Vietnam War. Were they
two actual people? I didn't know them.
Did you know them, or did you just?
No, I knew of them.
You knew of
these were two actual people, two actual combatants in the Vietnam War, one for us and one for them. And I'm still not sure whether I want to release that book or not. It's really harsh. Okay. Yeah, well, Vietnam was harsh.
It's
really harsh. And it exploits various things that prisoners went through, tortures that prisoners went through.
Yeah.
And it's not a pretty book. So
it's heavy. Yeah.
It's a heavy book. So I have asked people if they want to read it. It's an unedited manuscript, like an author's released copy, and give me an opinion of what they think. I'm really hesitant. I really don't know whether I'm going to release that or not.
That's understandable. Yeah.
It's really a harsh book.
Well, on a much lighter note, and why I was laughing a second ago is Joe Conjal says, asking a favor, Robin Joan, can you let me know what your question for Caleb will be later so that I can be prepared to ask something different than you guys, LOL.
No, we got to keep you on your toes, Joe.
Yeah. That's because
that's no fun, Joe. Come on.
Last week on that Paul Hollis was on
the Voice of Indie
podcast, and Caleb will be on tonight. And we asked a question, and then afterwards, Beam Week said, "Well, I'll now read Joe Congel's question that he put on Twitter." Was the same thing.
Same question.
So, yeah, we'll think about it, Joe.
If you're lucky.
I do know what I want to ask. I do know what I want to ask Caleb already.
Okay, cool. Well, Frank, I'm going to ask you what we normally ask our guest at the end of the show. What, for any new writers out there, people that haven't dared to put the pencil to the paper yet, but really feel like they'd like to, what advice would you give them in kind of a nutshell?
Read, 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 read. Your best, if you haven't written a book and you want to be a writer, you need to read a lot of books. Read, 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 read. And then pick up a pen, start with a tablet, start with a notebook, write down your thoughts, and keep that tablet with you, because you may come up with thoughts at a random time during the day, and you may say to yourself, "Oh, I'll write that down later." No. You need to write it down when you think about it, and then start your writing process. But you need to read. If you don't read a lot of books, it's just going to be a very hard road to hoe.
Yeah, no kidding, right? I agree with that. You?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, well, you're a reader.
I am a reader.
I'm more of a reader now than I was a while ago.
I love to read. And I know that Rob has shown a lot of the paperbacks and books that he's reading, but I want a lot of the authors that are listening right now. I have your books on ebook, and I'm reading a lot of books I read on ebooks in my Kindle.
I'm old-fashioned.
Yeah, me too.
I used to like having an actual book in my hand, but I found that when we are taking trips, it's much easier for me to have everything downloaded on my Kindle, and I don't have to take a suitcase full of books, which is what it would take when we take a
That's
trip.
true.
So, because I read a lot, so it's better just to download them all on the Kindle.
For me, it's very handy to have a paperback, because then if there's a fly that gets into the room, you could whap. You got something. You don't want to hit your Kindle onto the wall.
No,
it's not good for it.
Stacy Hawk says,
hi, Stacy.
Great interview. That historical fiction piece sounds interesting. All the best.
It is very interesting, Stacy.
Glad you could join us.
I think for everybody that lived through the Vietnam War and had really good friends or family or went there themselves, it's a very real, or it's still real. George Duke says, writing is a pseudo-religious experience. You mentioned God and Jesus a lot.
What? Yeah, well, you're...
Darn it. I get it.
Gosh darn it.
It took me a minute, George.
That's a good one, George.
I do. I say, oh my God, a lot.
Oh, well, this has been fun. Thank you so much, Frank, for joining us.
Well, thank you for having. It's been great. Thanks to all those who tuned in and watched and listened.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody go visit Frank. If you can't remember how to reach him, let us know and we can put you back in touch with him. I'm going to move you over.
Okay, Joe Conjul said, okay, enjoyed the show tonight. Thanks, Frank. And of course, Rob and Joan. And if you really want to know the question, text us. You've got our number and I'll tell you what it is.
There you go. What I want to talk about is next week, August 3rd, next Wednesday, is going to be a big show. We're going to have several guests. We're going to have authors Paul Hollis again with his accomplice, Pamela Erickson. They wrote they're kind of in cahoots on a book that Pamela's got her name on about the, I can't remember the name of it now. The Earthling's Handbook. What is it? It's something. It's a good book, though.
It's about what to do.
Yeah,
for
surviving
the ecology and how to be kind to the world and the earth that we're living on.
Right, right. And along with them on the show is going to be author and director George Dismukes and several cast members of the movie Siren Song, and maybe even a surprise guest as well. So it's going to be a big show next Wednesday. Make sure you show up. Then
we made a few more comments.
Okay.
Paul Hollis says, "Thanks, Frank, Joan, and Rob. You're welcome." Marjorie, Marjorie Daring said, "P.S. I really liked your cowboy hat last week, Rob."
Thank you, man.
Oh, thank you, Paul. It's endangered Earthlings.
I remember the Earthlings part.
You did.
Because I am one. Anyway.
And I remembered it's about us taking care of planet Earth.
There you go. And can you believe it's August? Going to be August next week?
No.
Besides,
Christmas decorations will be up at Walmart.
There you go. They're probably already there.
They're probably
anyway,
already up at Home
we
Depot.
told you about August 3rd, and then August 10th. We're going to be traveling, but we have a really good pre-record with author Terry Brown, who wrote about the Ukraine, right?
Yeah, and really tune in for that one, guys. Terry really wrote a touching story long before what was going on in the Ukraine now. And it's called Sunflowers Under the Snow.
Right. So that'll be our show on next Wednesday, or the 10th, August 10th. On the 17th, we'll have author Ron Alexander with us.
But we'll be back then.
We'll be back. That'll be live again. And then the rest of the month is live. Then on the 24th, we'll have author Ted Vanson is going to be on.
Oh, that's our station manager. That's our boss. We're going to be on our best behavior.
He's going to tell us all about how to do paranormal investigating old school.
How to ghost hunt old school.
Yeah.
We may have some conversations about how we do paranormal investigations.
Exactly. I'm thinking that's going to happen. And then the 31st will be author Ken Stark. I think he writes horror.
He does write horror. And if you've been following Ken for a long time, you know what we're talking about. If you've retweeted him on Twitter and stuff, you know.
Right.
Most people know Ken. He's been around for a while.
And episode rewind this Saturday is KJ Waters. We already mentioned that.
Joe Conjal said that would be cool. Oh, the discussions about the paranormal. I say that because we use equipment and he's not a fan of that.
He doesn't use a lot of equipment.
But we agree on a lot of other things, though. We basically believe in the same things and have the same attitude towards paranormal investigation. Just we do use equipment. He doesn't.
Right.
Well, he uses a recorder and a flashlight.
So, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I could talk about paranormal investigations.
We could talk about that, but why don't we save that for the show with Ted?
All right.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Joan.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Frank.
Until next time.
That's all, folks.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DB.com.
You've been listening to WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.